Hello and welcome. As we're coming up to Halloween, I thought it would be time for another ghost story from within the bus industry. But this time, this story isn't just from within the bus industry. It certainly concerns a bus, but it's a very famous and very well-known story that's received an awful lot of press coverage. Join me as we travel back to the 1930s as we investigate the story of the Ghost Bus of Kensington. Nearly 4 in 10 British people believe that ghosts could exist, whilst 28% of British people claim to have had a paranormal experience. But whatever you believe, you can't deny that the living are outnumbered by the dead. In today's video, we take a look at a rather strange tale. Now, in previous Halloween videos, we've looked at spooky bus stops, a haunted Volvo Olympian, and a mystery passenger that vanished on late-night buses on the Kent coast. In this video, we look at a ghost bus. Now, whatever your view on the paranormal, the idea of a ghost vehicle of any kind is an interesting one. The theory is that ghosts are meant to be the souls of the dead that are trapped here on Earth. However, vehicles, of course, don't have souls, do they? Yet there's stories of ghost cars, ghost trains, ghost ships, and even ghost aircraft. So why not ghostly buses? Maybe, of course, this is conclusive proof that these lumps of rubber, metal and plastic, which many people believe to be inanimate, really aren't. And of course, anyone who's ever worked on anything mechanical at all will tell you that these things certainly do have a mind of their own. The story of Route 7 can be traced back to the 1st of November 1908, when an unnumbered daily route operating between Wormwood Scrubs and Liverpool Street Station was allocated route number 7. For 10 years between 1910 and 1920, the route was operated entirely by the X-type bus, and it would be the only route in London which would use these vehicles regularly. The 1st of December 1924 would see a new system of route numbering on London buses come into force under the London Traffic Act of 1924. This would give the Metropolitan Police responsibility for the bus operation and route numbering within London. Route 7, though, remained unchanged, but the 7A, which had been introduced on the 14th of August 1916 as a supplementary Monday to Saturday route, was renumbered Route 107, whilst the 7B, which had been introduced in the 1920s and was running from Waterloo Station to London Bridge, was renumbered the 166. Also during the 1920s, the Route 7 was extended to Acton, although just to confuse things, short workings from Wormwood Scrubs were renumbered 7A. And this situation remained until the 3rd of October 1934, which coincidentally is the sort of time era that our story takes place in. This, of course, was when the newly formed London Passenger Transport Board took over and instituted its own numbering system. Route 7, though, continued, but with an extension to Kew Green until the 22nd of August 1946, and this would be when the 7A service was revived from Acton to London Bridge. On the 19th of August 1958, Route 7 would be withdrawn. However, from the 14th of October 1959, the former Route 7A had its suffix removed, becoming the plain Route 7, and this would run between Acton Tram Depot and London Bridge Station via East Acton, Ladbroke Grove, Paddington Station, Edgware Road, Marble Arch, Oxford Street, Holborn Station and Bank Station. In 1963, the Saturday service of Route 7 was extended from Acton to Kew Green to replace the withdrawn route 265. But this wouldn't last for long, as on the 31st of December 1966, this would be replaced by the Route 27A. On the 24th of January 1970, the Red Arrow Route 501 was rerouted from Aldgate to London Bridge, and this would result in Route 7 being cut back to Bloomsbury near to Tottenham Court Road. 1992 would see the route extended to terminate at Russell Square, with the route now being run by AEC Routemasters. These RMLs, though, would be replaced on the 3rd of July 2004 by low-floor double-deckers, which had been released from Route 25. The 23rd of June 2007 would see Metroline taking over Route 7 from First London. And in May 2021, Routes 7 and N7 became the first in London to use double-decker hydrogen-fuelled cell buses. The new vehicles are Wright Street Deck Hydroliner FCEVs. Also in 2021, the frequency of the service was reduced from 7.5 or 8 buses per hour, I'm not sure how they work the half out, to 5 buses per hour at peak times. Now, incidentally, there have been a couple of major incidences on the Route 7, aside from the story that I'm going to tell you in a moment. On the 13th of June 1957, an RTL-type bus on the Route 7A ran into a queue of waiting passengers in Oxford Street, and this would sadly kill 8 people. The driver had collapsed at the wheel with heat exhaustion. And on the 30th of July 1966, RM 1768, operating on the Route 7, caught fire at Marble Arch. The cause was an overheated flywheel. Fortunately, though, the driver, conductor and passengers all escaped without injury. At the time of our story taking place, 1934, Route 7 was run by the ST-type buses. These had been introduced in October 1929 and was based on AEC's revolutionary AEC Regent. The first bus, ST1, was fitted with a windscreen. Now, you might think there's nothing special in that, but at the time, the Public Carriage Office that licensed the London buses was explicit in the fact that London buses mustn't have a windscreen. The next standard ST buses to be delivered, which would be ST2 to 517, had no windscreen as originally built to satisfy the London regulations. The first of these buses would start to enter service at Hanwell Garage from the 28th of February 1930. However, the buses at the time of our story were the second batches of STs, and these would run from ST518 to ST836, and these would be known as the ST2s. These ST2s were pretty much the same as the ST1/1s. They had an enlarged rear cutout on the rear platform, which would be used as an emergency exit should the bus turn over. They had a single platform window and improved destination displays. However, the chassis would include things such as upgraded steering, brakes and gearbox. Of these buses, 25 of the bodies would be built by Strackens, 17 would be built by Shorts, and the rest would be built by the Chiswick Works. Of this batch, 162 of them would be owned by Tramways Met Omnibus Company, and these would run briefly with their Metropolitan fleet names until their next overhaul, when they were changed to the general fleet name. Some of these would be allocated to Middle Row Garage, North Kensington, which at that time carried the code X. Nowadays, of course, X is the code for Westbourne Park Garage. Now this is where the tale gets a little bit strange. In June 1934, a young motorist suffered a terrible death when his car, for no apparent reason, swerved off the road, and depending on what report you read, it either crashed into the wall of a house or a lamppost, and maybe burst into flames. Now I'm going to add an allegedly after the end of that, because there's potentially 3 sides to this story. Now, one of course was the one that I've told you, and the other one was that the driver was a 25-year-old Ian Beaton, who was driving a small motor car that didn't crash into a lamppost but collided with the car behind him. whilst yet another version of the story states that the driver managed to jump out before the car crashed and survived despite being badly injured. Now, apparently there was an inquest, so I would imagine there's a possibility that it was a fatal accident, because it was at this inquest that several witnesses spoke on their own encounters with the ghost bus, which always appeared on that same stretch of road, usually at the junction of Cambridge Gardens and St Mark's Road in Kensington. Now, of course, the coroner who attended the inquiry declared himself to be sceptical and rather cynical about this bus, and was more inclined to put the blame on the fact it was a late hour the incident took place. The ghost bus was in the current livery of the time and bore the fleet name General, which was that of the London General Omnibus Company, whilst others tried to offer rational explanations, suggesting that it was a late-night staff bus or an apparition caused by reflections. Strangely though, incidents involving the bus always seem to be around the same time, 1:15 a.m. Witnesses would say how the bus tore down the middle of the road towards them and forced them desperately to swing their vehicles off the road to avoid it. When they looked back, no bus was in sight. Even after this inquest, even more people came forward with their own experiences. A typical encounter with the bus was from a report made by a Martin Jeffrey, and this report was made to the Kensington Police, and it stated, "I was turning the corner and saw a bus tearing towards me. The lights on the top and bottom decks and the headlights were full on, but I could see no crew or passengers." And it wasn't just other motorists as well who were terrorised by this ghost bus. Pedestrians who had been crossing the road late at night had to flee for their lives as the bus was suddenly bearing down on them. They would claim that they would be crossing the road, and when they looked, there would be no vehicles in sight, when suddenly the ghost bus would appear in the middle of the street, racing towards them. After jumping for their lives, they would look back to see that the road was empty and there was no bus in sight. Another report from a local transport official claimed he had seen a bus draw up in the local bus depot in the early hours of the morning with its engine running, and then it just vanished in front of his very eyes. Still more witnesses came forward saying that they had seen this ghost bus, and the witness statements all tended to have the same description of the vehicle, the bus being fully lit but with no passengers or crew on board, and it would appear at exactly 1:15 a.m. and disappeared around the corner. Sometimes the engine could be heard running loudly, sometimes the bus was silent. Even more strangely, sometimes the bus would be seen parked at the side of the road and would disappear when people attempted to aboard it thinking that it was a correct bus. It was rumoured at the time that whoever boarded it would be lost forever. In response to the original fatal accident in 1935, the Royal Borough of Kensington widened the corner of Cambridge Road and St Mark's Road, and this improved visibility at the junction. On top of this, they added more street lamps, and from that moment on, the phantom bus didn't make a reappearance. So what really happened? Well, to be fair, nearly 100 years on, I don't think we will ever know the truth, will we? Although it does make you wonder if one of the residents had a magic lantern and could somehow project the image of the bus into the road. But would somebody who lived nearby deliberately try and cause accidents and deliberately cause the death of a motorist? It does sound all rather far-fetched, doesn't it? But then, saying that, the whole story of the Ghost Bus of Kensington sounds incredibly far-fetched, doesn't it? I think there's also a large amount of the power of suggestive thought going on within this story, that people have been told that there's a ghost bus running down this road, and any bright lights that they see or any strange vehicles that they see take on the persona of this ghost bus. And the fact that the bus appeared at the same time every night, that's a little bit strange, because Anybody that's ever travelled on a number 7 or indeed any London bus will know that they're most of the time late. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and it's all done in tongue-in-cheek, of course. Or is it? If you did enjoy this video, please like, hype and share it. And don't forget to check out my other videos here on YouTube. There's something for everyone, and you do look like a bus enthusiast with incredibly good taste. So I'm sure you'll find something there that will suit that taste of yours. If you're enjoying the channel content and the videos on my channel, you can always buy me a drink via the Super Thanks button, and I would be eternally grateful, and I will thank you in advance. Thank you. Of course, don't forget to comment down below with your thoughts and theories on this ghost bus of Ladbroke Grove. I'm always interested to read your thoughts and opinions on any of my videos, and I do try and reply to all of your comments, although sometimes YouTube takes great delight in hiding them away from me and I don't find them for several weeks later. Naughty YouTube. And finally, I'd like to wish you a happy Halloween and fireworks night. Don't have nightmares. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.